All right, everybody, we're back on the roof, and today we have with us supermodel Shanti Patty Owen.
I had to have 3 names.
Right, there you go. In her career, she graced the covers of Marie Claire, Glamour, Elle, and many other magazines, and she had an illustrious career. So she's going to share with us her story now, because what an interesting life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can say definitely I've had a very interesting life, for sure.
Now, you grew up in Massachusetts?
In Massachusetts, yes.
And where?
In Amherst. Well, I actually grew up in a suburb of Boston, in Somerville, when I was very young, until I was 8, which is like kind of like an Irish, Italian ghetto area.
So what were you doing?
Well, I was all about sports. Well, I started with gymnastics, and then I became too tall, and my gymnastics coach kept dropping me. You know, when you become too tall for gymnastics, you can't rotate around your own axis quick enough. So then I got into swimming, diving, soccer, basketball, track and field. And track and field was really where I found my niche. Yeah. I was a high jumper. That was my main event.
Were you always intense?
Yes. I think I was always intense. Am I appearing intense right now?
Oh, no, just, we've talked.
No,
and,
you're right.
You've accomplished a lot.
Yeah.
And you seem to put your eyes on something, you get there.
I guess I am intense. I can be intense in whichever emotion I'm in at the moment. If I'm happy, there is nobody happier. And if I'm angry, you better run.
There's a setup.
I know.
There's a setup.
I know.
There it is. So now you're a track and field star, right?
Well, not now, but then I was. Then I was. Yes, in high school I was, yes. I mean, I was a sprinter. I did long jump. I did hurdles, but my main event was high jump.
Right.
So
Very
I was
competitive?
Yeah. Well, I was undefeated for 4 years in Western Mass. I was very serious about training for the Olympics, and that was really my focus.
Right.
And then I went to UMass, which was down the street from where I lived.
Okay.
And I ran out of funds. I had tried this modeling thing in high school for a few months, and I hated it. It just was not me. I was a tomboy. I never wore makeup. I didn't even wear dressy clothes. I wore athletic gear 24/7. So it was really uncomfortable for me to present myself in this uber feminine way.
What kind of modeling was this like now? Where were you still
So
in
this
Amherst?
was, so I was in Amherst. This was in Boston.
Right.
But within a couple of months, John Casablancas from Elite came down to Boston to visit her agency. He saw me, 1, 2, 3, I was in Boston, then I was in New York City, and then I was in Paris, all within a few months. It was
so that was
a
the
whirlwind.
big break, John Casablancas.
Yeah.
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 How did you deal with, there's a lot of rejection then at the beginning when I'm sure you come in with these high expectations and you go out on a job and, you're doing a lot of legwork maybe and maybe not landing the job. How do you take that as a young girl?
Whenever I decide to do something, I don't quit.
Right.
So, of course, it was frustrating not to get really powerful jobs and clients when I wanted them, which was, immediately. But I didn't stop. And I think that has a lot to do with my athletic training. Because when you're really training hardcore for a sport, you just go, 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 even when you want to throw up, even when you want to give up. It's just keep going, keep going, keep going. So that athlete was still in me. And I just was like, okay, didn't get that job. Oh, keep going. Okay, when's the next appointment? Where some girls would go, oh no, I really didn't get it. I was like, come on, girls, keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's good because I think that maybe it's those early impressionable traits that you've acquired continue to help you.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, sports really was my saving grace in life. I mean, it started with dance. Dance is also incredibly disciplined, and then it parlayed into other sports. Yeah, because I just wanted to get out of my house. I mean, my mother was a bit of a terror, so it was like, best just stay out of the house.
Yeah, that's why I asked that about, because you seem to have trudged right through that, and had a bigger, prize in sight, right?
Yeah, I also had a very difficult time at the end of high school. So it was 1977. I was dating a guy that I knew since I was 12. And we started dating my senior year of high school. Well, he happened to be black, and that just did not go over well with my father.
Yeah.
So he kicked me out of the house.
This is what, 1977?
77.
Yeah.
So this was my senior year of high school, so he kicked me out of the house. Then he said, well, you can stay if you break up with him. It was like a year of hell. And my father was my hero. I mean, my father and I were like that. Mm-hmm. So for him to do that with me was very painful. So
that is heavy.
It was very heavy, and ultimately we worked it out. I ran away from home. They said they would accept him, but he wasn't allowed in the house. It was really rough. So when I stayed with him for about 2.5 years, and then when I started modeling, we broke off, but I think I had a vendetta. A little bit of a vendetta, maybe a big vendetta, I don't know.
Towards your dad?
Maybe towards my father, but maybe towards the whole world. I mean, the world wasn't.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, the world wasn't very friendly with me about that.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be the track star. I was, I had like a 3.8 average in high school. I was a class treasurer. I was just, did everything right. And all of a sudden, I'm dating a black guy, and I just in the tank. Not just my father, but other people.
Totally judged.
Totally judged. So I think I really, even though we had broken up, I had lived for 2.5 years being rejected so intensely that I was like, I'm making this, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because I need the money, because I was broke. And I think I had something to prove to myself and probably to others.
When did you decide with your modeling career then, like, this is really something I want?
I got into the creative, artistic end of it, that just fed something within me that I loved. And, and who couldn't like hanging out in the 80s with, Andy Warhol and Basquiat and, Keith Haring. I mean, I loved hanging out with the artists.
Right, right. You were a quote unquote supermodel.
Yeah.
What is the criteria that establishes a supermodel from, other girls who just modeled?
It's not about the money. I was not a big money maker. I think it really is. It has to do with your visibility in the magazines. Because there were many girls that were catalog models that made 100 times more money than I did. And sometimes I was a little jealous because they bought houses and apartments and cars, and I was like, wow, how are they doing that? And they're like, they're doing catalog. But I couldn't do catalog really to save my life because I had such an edgy look to myself. The catalogs were a little afraid to use me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did, like maybe Bloomingdale's or Bergdorf's, a little bit of Macy's, but your basic all-American magazine, they weren't really having this spunky, funky, punky girl.
So you found your niche.
So I found my niche. Yeah, so really a supermodel is someone who has a lot of visibility in the magazines.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so then now you're modeling. We're going to fast forward a little bit because your life, I'm blown away by your life. You can sit here. Really, you're a courageous woman, and you've come through so much. And I want to get to some of that stuff now. You got the modeling career kind of backfired at a certain point, right?
The modeling career didn't backfire after I was successful.
Okay.
It backfired right at the beginning.
Okay, explain that.
Well, I have written about it in the book. Do you want me to read that paragraph?
That would be a great idea.
Julie Anderson and Marla Carlton were also fashion models. And they started this incredible online forum called the Feminine Collective. And I just got this today. I just got this today in the mail. They put several of my essays in here that I had that they had posted over the last couple of years.
And you're going to Read a couple of
And
them first.
yeah, well, we'll see. I'll read the first one, and just so you understand how I began my modeling
How I
career.
roll.
Yeah, it wasn't all pretty. Beginning of my modeling career. Here we go. The title of this essay, My Insane Relationship with a Rapist, by Shanti Patty Owen. Ashamed to admit it, yet it is the truth. I slept with my rapist several times after he raped me on 2 separate occasions. The first rape happened in New York City during a photo shoot soon after I arrived to begin my modeling career. I was 20 years young, full of hope and innocence. Sasha was a jaded 30-something-year-old Russian-born photographer who drove me to the Hamptons, took photos of me on the beach, then announced he was too tired to drive back to New York City. He took me to his friend's house to rest. No one at home, he cornered me and raped me. I jumped into the shower afterwards and cried for nearly an hour. I felt completely violated, grief-stricken, yet frozen in fear. So that's just the beginning of it.
Okay.
But what happened is that I was so devastated from being raped that somehow, I found out later this is common. People try to befriend the perpetrator. I ended up becoming friends with him in order, I guess, at the time somehow I figured, well, if I become his friend, that would negate the rape. Yeah. But then he did it to me a few years later. He drugged me and raped me when I told him I wouldn't sleep with him anymore. Yeah, so that was my introduction to modeling.
What toll did that take upon you emotionally to carry this type of stuff with you?
Well, what I'm about to tell you was not conscious, okay? It's only been since I've been writing my memoirs these past 3 years that I started to see the pattern, the trajectory, how it happened. Because when I started writing my memoirs, I was like, how did I end up with a sex and love addiction? How did this happen? So how I dealt with it, not well. I cheated on all my boyfriends in my 20s. It was horrible. I loved them. And yet I couldn't be alone. I usually cheated on them when I traveled. I was afraid to be alone, like scared. Yeah. Especially in foreign countries. So I'd end up being friends with someone on the photo shoot, and we'd end up hooking up. All kinds of things. The need for constant attention, validation.
But at this time, like, you're in the middle of it, so you don't see it that way. You don't see this as detrimental.
No.
You're having fun.
Everybody said, come on, you're living the life of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. You're a big supermodel. Yeah. How can you be faithful to one guy? You're traveling around the world. You're hobnobbing with the rich and famous. Don't be hard on yourself. Everybody does it. So that was the justification for it.
Right.
But it never felt right to me. Because I couldn't stop. Some people have sex addiction, some people have love addiction. I happen to have them both.
Yeah.
And I didn't know I had this addiction, but I became intensely promiscuous right after September 11th. It kicked into high gear, and within a year I had about 30 lovers. And
in a calendar year. Was it just like, an insatiable appetite?
What I did to medicate, since I couldn't find somebody that I was in love with that quickly, we were together for a couple of years, I just figured, well, I thought about volume, and I said, well, the more people I meet, the more guys I meet and sleep with, then the more possibility of finding the next Prince Charming. So, I just like, well, here we go. Sometimes on a weekend I'd have somebody Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. I mean, it was just.
Okay, so now when you're discovering this in retrospect as you look back over your life.
Right.
Right. So the part of your life you're talking about now is from 9/11, 2001, right?
Until 2011.
Okay, so let's just jump back
a decade
before. Let's go before that.
Okay.
Let's go back there because you had left the modeling world.
Right.
Why did you leave the modeling world?
I left the modeling world because of sexual harassment in Hollywood. Listen, if I had acted out like I did after September 11th while I was in Hollywood, I probably would have been big famous actress by now, but I was not having it.
Right.
I was not having it. See, the thing about having a sex addiction, it's like if you have a heroin addiction and someone offers you cocaine, you don't want cocaine, you want heroin.
Right.
So I wanted sex, and I wanted to have sex with someone I was attracted to. So it was not appealing for me to have sex with somebody I wasn't attracted to. There was no way I was having sex to get in your movie. I was like, no,
Right.
That's not gonna happen.
Right.
That's not gonna happen.
So it's, right, okay. That makes sense. That I can understand.
Yeah.
When you draw that correlation between the drugs and
Right,
yeah,
because
yeah.
you know the drug world.
So what? Yeah, I do. And there's so many parallels. That's one of the reasons I'm so intrigued, and I find you so courageous for doing what you're doing, because there are so many parallels, but there are also huge differences. You know, but we'll get there
Okay.
in a minute. So now you leave. You
So I just
Pack
left.
your bags, I'm done. I'm done
left.
with
I
this.
moved to India, and
that is a drastic.
that's drastic. I do drastic things, I guess.
Was there also kind of a search spiritually? within
Oh, of
yourself?
course. Oh my God, of course.
well-
It was just a voyage into knowing myself.
And then and what
Meditation was one of the main tools.
What did you learn?
I think probably what I learned during this whole time was that the most important thing in life is love, real love, not the neediness.
So that's where you were able to define what you were ultimately looking for?
Yes. It seems really simple. Why did I have to spend 8 years to find out what real love is? But
It is simple, but it takes what it
but
takes.
it takes what it takes.
Yeah. Did you kind of feel, okay, you've got out of it as much as you're going to get out of it, it's time to go back, to come to New York? Because you did come to New York from there, right?
You know, I took my toddler and we moved to Manhattan, and then I started my old tricks.
Yeah. Wow, what a way with words.
I think anybody who is newly divorced goes a little wild. So that's not a big red flag.
Okay.
You know, I think that it's very common. You know, I had a rather sexless marriage for 7 years. So, you know, I got the 7-year itch. I left and it was like, woohoo, let's go back. You know, I remember this game. This is fun.
Right. How would you define the word addiction as a sex and love addict? How would you define that word?
I'm sure there are many medical definitions of addiction. I think it's a compulsion that you have absolutely no control over.
Yeah.
Unless you do something about it, you know, that you need help. I think without help, when you have an addiction, you're out of control. I think you're just out of control.
Was there a particular moment when you realized that you were an addict? When you were able to define yourself as a sex addict?
I was afraid I was a sex addict when I was working in the law firm, and somebody had asked me, it was a friend of someone who worked in the law firm. I have not met her since, but one of the secretaries in the law firm was bragging about me and my sexual prowess, and oh, Shanti, she has all these lovers, and oh my God, this one's spinning here, spinning there. And this woman said to me, have you ever considered that you might have a sex addiction? It terrified me. I was like, an addiction? I said, no. She said, you have so many lovers. And I said, no, it's just fun. But I'll tell you something. That night I went home and I looked at my list. I had 3 lists, the A list, the B list, and the C list. And so what I did is I went through the list and I chopped it all down to about like 8 from 30.
Do you think that there was a repression, like maybe a sexual repression, that all of a sudden you feel this liberation and you're just going to explore, and that was?
I think so. Yes, I think so, because part of sex addiction, the other side of acting out sexually is sexual anorexia. So you're not acting out, you're not having a lot of sex or a lot of relationships, you're actually abstinent.
So the addiction is active and alive, you just weren't acting on it within that.
I was acting on it.
Oh, even
I
in
realize now,
anorexia?
no, I was acting out with sexual anorexia. Like I was married, but we had sex once every 2 or 3 years. You know.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then, yeah.
So
How do you do that?
that's considered acting out. Acting out can be being very promiscuous, which I had done, but acting out can also be abstaining from sex.
Right. So have you been able to decide for yourself what a healthy relationship is? I mean, I don't know who does, to be honest with you. I know
I've
some
seen
people have great
some in the
relationships.
movies once in a while.
Yeah, I mean,
No,
how do we
look,
do
I
that?
don't. You know what? I think you're asking the wrong person.
I know with drugs and alcohol, I shouldn't be doing this,
Yeah,
but I did it,
yeah,
and abused it. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of parallels between our lives, although your life is really never gets the stage, the proper format to really, there's so much judgment involved.
there is. There's a lot of judgment, but I just want to get back to a minute about drugs and
Yeah,
alcohol,
yeah.
just to give you an idea how it's different. Sex and love addiction, I liken more to having like a food addiction.
Right.
Because you don't need drugs and alcohol to live. You can survive without it. You might want it and crave it,
Right.
but you can live without it.
Right.
It's easier in some ways because you just don't ever take that first drink or that
yeah.
first hit or whatever that is. So you'll be okay as long as you don't go there. But with a sex and love addiction, doesn't mean I'm going to be celibate for the rest of my life. If you want to be in a relationship, people like me have to learn how to navigate this world, because as soon as I feel, quote, in love, which is neediness or lust probably, I become very attached. I have entered relationships where it's just sexually addicting as well, where all we do is have sex. It's great for the guy who doesn't want to spend money on me because I'm just happy to stay in bed. But that's not healthy either. So
Right.
I have to constantly monitor myself. It's like, ooh, is that, are you going down that road again? Are you, it's like, I think I might be. Or as addicts all do, we like to, take the road down denial and go, nah, it's not a big deal, so it's all right, right?
Well, the reward, up to a certain point, the reward is worth the risk until it isn't.
Right. So it's tough. It's like having a food addiction. We have to eat to live.
So how do you, are you left in like this conundrum on like, what am I gonna do? Like a lot of, I felt like this way, like I had to go on my journey to find my place.
Right.
Because of the depths that I went down, I was able to come up with some like pretty good understanding. And I've been able to meet real interesting people that have helped me along the way, really helped me. Whereas a lot of people that never went to the depths that I went through.
No, I mean,
as
look,
detrimental as it may have been.
I've been sober now for 4 years, I guess, 4 years.
What is that? Can you explain to me what
Although I
sexual
have to say, if I don't
sobriety
get out of this sexual anorexic phase, I mean, it's been several months. If I continue on, this could be acting out again, and I won't be sober, So I haven't been dating for a good 6 or 8 months, and I'm feeling like, let's just keep this for another year. I'm fine. But if I have to push myself to date so that
is it
I don't act out with my sexual anorexia. Do you understand?
I'm trying to understand. I really am. I'm trying, and I probably look confused because I am. But
I'm
so
confused.
if you're just saying like, you're repressing,
Sexual anorexia is just repressing our urge to merge. Okay?
Yeah.
Whether it is we're repressing our sexual energy or our emotional connective energy, we're afraid of being hurt. That's ultimately what it is. We're afraid of being hurt by somebody else, excuse me, or hurting ourselves.
Right.
So it's better to just abstain. Let's just avoid this.
Okay. So how do you've mentioned there's been a lot of trauma, right? Mm-hmm. Is that happened? I mean, do you get past that? I mean, are you past that?
Abandonment is a major issue for me. Mm-hmm. So when I date somebody, and if all of a sudden we're having this great connection, and then they just disappear for 2 weeks, don't return calls, no texts, and all of a sudden they show up like, hey, what's going on? So for me, it hits my major abandonment traumas.
Right.
And if I was in my acting out phase sexually, if the guy was not responding to me, I would say, oh, screw him, I'm gonna go screw somebody else, and somebody else, and somebody else, and maybe a couple girls, and why not? And I can do this, and what the heck, Because that's what I do with my abandonment issue.
Right.
That's what I do when I feel unloved, unwanted, uncared for. I was like, well, I'm gonna find a million other people that want me. So, it's tricky.
I mean, I've struggled since the 70s.
So your
late
high
70s.
is getting, your high is
My
chemical. You like the alcohol and you like the drugs. So that's your high, right?
Yeah.
So I get those
It's one of them.
I get those same chemical highs
Yeah, sure.
by having sex.
Right, it's an endorphin thing.
It's an endorphin
mental
rush.
thing, yes.
And it's not just the sex itself, but I do enjoy sex, but it's the whole game. It's the flirting, it's the acquisition,
Which is like copying.
it's the game
It's
player.
not different than copying. Copying sometimes got you higher than actually using.
You know what? I don't even know what that means.
Buying drugs, like getting,
Oh,
going
copying.
to get it.
I'm such not a drug
prepping.
addict.
In other words,
Copying.
like prepping to go out to a party, get drunk, or
Oh,
whatever it is.
prepping.
The whole.
It's the whole ritual around it.
That's it.
You
That's
know,
the romance.
getting all dressed up, going to the bar, and it's like, screw him. You know
Actually
what? I'm not with
getting high
him.
It's just the orgasm. You know, it's not.
It's not just. It's the whole trajectory. But
Yeah.
then after the orgasm, and then worse if there's no orgasm, then it's really bad. But it's. Look, people ask me this question all the time. What makes you think you have a sex addiction?
Right.
Like what, you know, this person might have been doing something similar. And they don't think they have a sex addiction. Same as alcohol. You realize you had a drug and alcohol problem. You could probably point your finger to 100 other people who used as much as you did, and they didn't think they had an addiction. It's really about how we feel about it.
Right.
I knew that I used sex to medicate myself.
Right.
I used it when I was depressed, when I was angry, when I was sad, when I was bored. I used it when I was happy. I used it all the time.
Right.
It was just my go-to thing. And as long as I was having a lot of sex and intrigue, I was happy. You know, when I was at the law firm, and I was acting out a lot at that point, you would not look at me and think I was an unhappy person. I didn't think I was an unhappy person because I was constantly high. I was constantly high. No, I mean, of course I was banging people after work, but I had people in the office I was banging. So I had constant attention. It was great.
See, when you're saying, yeah, you were still having fun, you hadn't crossed that invisible line.
I hadn't crossed the line.
Right.
Because I was having so much intrigue and sex and constant high, I didn't think there was a problem.
Right.
But then their problems started.
Right, such as?
I met this guy who was really into polyamory, open relationships, and I tried so desperately in those 3 years to practice monogamy, and I really wanted to make monogamy happen. So when I met him, I thought, this is the worst kind of guy I could be with. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't be alone. My addiction would not allow me to be alone. And so I thought, I'm just going to be with him for a couple months till I feel better, and then I'll look for somebody who wants monogamy. But it didn't happen. So
As soon as he mentioned that, did that not just shoot off a red flag that just like, this is not something I should be doing? This is not really what I'm after? Or?
Red flags, purple flags. I mean, there were flags all over the place. But my addiction would not allow me to be alone. You get two sex addicts together, you get two drug addicts together, or you get two alcoholics at a bar, you're going to end up on the floor drunk. You're going to get two sex addicts together, you're going to end up in an orgy, and that was basically our life for 5 years.
Yeah.
We were at swinger parties and orgies and sexing with this one and that one, and it just took my sex life into a whole nother plane. Look, I hung out with the wild people because I didn't feel like I was an anomaly. I was like, oh, they're all doing it. I'm just cool. I'm just a free spirit. But I always had actually my very best friends were very conservative sexually, because I was afraid if I had a really close girlfriend who was as wild as me, we'd go crazy. I did have one girlfriend like that, and we did go crazy together. And she and I were lovers, and we went to crazy parties. And so what happened with my ex-husband and I is that we were having so much sex with so many people. We got married eventually, and here we are married, but we had major financial problems. I don't know if it happens, it probably happens with drug and alcoholics.
If you spend all your money on drugs, it becomes a problem.
Okay, so I guess it became our problem because we became broke.
Yeah.
And so I proposed to him. One of the girls we used to sleep with was a prostitute, and she suggested to me that I try prostitution. No, she didn't suggest it. She asked me how would I feel about it, and I said, I have no idea. I mean, I don't know.
Just the word doesn't make you feel like that's a line I don't want to cross. Like the term itself.
The term,
before
It was a little,
rationalization
no,
sets
I
in,
have to
or-
tell you, I tried prostitution when I was at the law firm also. I had tried prostitution, and the tsunami in, what was it, 2003 saved me.
You're the one person on this planet that the tsunami saved.
Exactly, exactly.
Do you not at this point draw the correlation between...
You think I'm crazy?
No, I don't. Listen, it is crazy. Yes, it is. I do think you're crazy. But I'm crazy. I don't judge you on being crazy. You know what I mean? I think we're all crazy. I like crazy. Crazy's good. I mean, but we learn. Listen, I think,
I
like
know.
I said before, I think that, you know, it's a spiritual thing that we're lucky enough to sometimes scrape the bottom of a sewer. That's how I'm describing myself. And to learn from that,
Yeah.
there's a level of compassion that comes with it. There's a lot of good stuff that comes from really hitting low lows.
It didn't really start eating my soul until I met this guy in 2007. And here I am with this guy. Of course, I also didn't think he was a sex addict. I didn't think I was a sex addict. I just thought we were extremely sexual beings, more so than other people. But really, we were both sex addicts. And so what eventually happened, I told you, we went to several swinger parties and orgies and you name it, all kinds of, you know, BDSM conferences.
And this is long after, like, the Plato's retreat days.
Oh,
and all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is-
No, this
that's
was-
dead and buried.
This is when I was aware that there's just something wrong. Why can't I leave this guy? I love him, but he wants us to have so much sex with all these people. And at that point, I actually was feeling my monogamous roots. I really just wanted him. I really did. And I didn't want sex with all these other people. But that was his criteria for being with me. And so that was it.
And you co-signed it too. Like,
I
this is a
co-signed, listen,
mutual-
he was my love addiction,
Yep.
okay? And then you know, look, I'm not gonna say I didn't enjoy having sex at orgies and stuff. It was kind of fun, it was kind of kinky and stuff, but I sort of been there and done that. Didn't really want to keep doing that. And so here I am married and I'm a prostitute, you know. So I'd go home to my husband, I'd meet with men at night, sometimes I'd sleep over and I'd go home in the morning, sometimes I'd go home afterwards.
You're acting out on
I'm the
this
52-year-old prostitute.
level. Yeah.
And that was my big, you know, that was honestly my
And
only,
you're not-
that was my only stop to getting into it, because I said, how can I get work as a prostitute? I'm 52 years old. And so I was a little hesitant, but I made more money as a prostitute than anything I'd ever done.
Yeah.
Prostitution was my heroin. It would be like if someone offered you a plate of your favorite food and said, here it is, and now I'm gonna pay you $5,000 to eat it. And I went, oh my God, snap, this is really good.
It's so cool the way you can talk about this so openly, right? It's amazing. But you can do that, and I'm asking you, can you do that because this is behind you?
Yes,
And
I
it's the
had
same
I
thing
had a
with-
few years where I couldn't talk to anybody. I was angry at the
And
world.
don't
I was
use-
angry at myself. I was depressed. I was grief-stricken. I was, what the hell happened to me? How did I not see this Mack truck hitting me in the face all these years?
Yeah.
I mean, but I knew that when I started writing my memoirs, I started writing my memoirs because when I crashed, I immediately went on the internet to look for books for women with sex addiction.
Yeah.
And everything was written for men. It's considered a male disease. And when I started writing is really when I just got into my whole life, and then I just started connecting all the dots. I didn't think I was a sex addict, mind you. He was the sex addict.
So was it the abandonment again?
It was the abandonment and it was the betrayal.
Betrayal.
I started meditating regularly every day. And in meditation one day I just asked myself, I was like, why? Why did I attract this sex addict into my life? Why? And I was breathing and I got really quiet and I heard this voice. I don't know if it was the voice of God, my inner voice, I don't know what it was. This voice came up inside of me so loud and said, because you are that.
Yeah.
I was like, because I am that? Because I am a sex addict? Oh my God. I got up out of my chair, I ran to the bathroom to throw up, and because I hadn't been eating for 2 weeks because I was so devastated, nothing came out, and I just dry heaved for the longest time. And I thought, oh my God, I'm a sex addict. Oh my God. And
You're blown away by this, or is this almost like you're already mourning?
I was
The truth means now you get, you know.
no, I was terrified, but to look at myself and realize, and in that moment of realizing I had an addiction, a sex addiction, I saw my whole life from childhood through it, and I saw the whole thread, and I went, oh my God, of course. How could I have not seen it? How could I have, how could I be, 52 years old and not know? How could that happen? And that's why I'm so committed to writing this book, because I know there are many, many women who suffer with this.
I also think that you and your athleticism and your conviction to complete things and accomplish things, then your ego becomes like, well, I can do this, I got this, this is part of this is who I am. Don't tell me I'm not good enough. I got this. I'll fix it.
Yeah,
I'll fix it.
I'll fix it when I'm ready.
Yeah, and all of a sudden
I'm just not ready to fix it.
And you're like, shit, tired. I just can't get up and do that today. And it's like, there's some changes.
Well, how many years did you, quote unquote, enjoy your addiction before you realized it was killing you?
That's a heavy question, because as much as I was back and forth with, I know I'm not, normal. I know this is an issue with me, but I used to still believe that I could do it once in a while. And then I would spiral out of control and lose everything, and then build myself back up. I struggled my whole life with it.
Wow.
10 years.
That's great.
More than I ever had. And it's great. But at the same time, it's really, the answers I find are really obvious. But when you don't want to see them because you don't want to change, because you're afraid.
Yeah.
It's all like, I'm afraid, and I could never admit in front of anybody that I was afraid.
Let me
no
ask you
matter how
something.
much I'm shaking.
Let me ask you something honestly. Do you think you will ever relapse again?
It's hard for me to say that because I've relapsed so many times. Only since the time I got sober this time, and with this consecutive
I mean, this is
streak
this is like 10, 11 years you've been
It's
sober.
more than double I've ever had done.
Right.
So that's comforting in a sense.
Yeah.
But we know if we get too comfortable, it's
Ay,
over.
I know people have asked me this question, do I think I will ever relapse?
Yeah. I don't even know how you would really distinguish what an actual relapse is.
I do know what it
It's
is.
a lot different than with me. I don't go to a bar.
Well,
and
a
go, "Drink
relapse
it,"
for me would
relapse.
be clear. Well, I'm not good enough to be with you, for you to just commit to me. You need to see other people. Well, I'm going to see other people too. And that's the beginning of my spiral.
Instinctively, you go there.
Yes. So I have to be in a monogamous relationship. I cannot fool around, literally, with someone who wants to fool around with other
Right.
people. It starts something within me that it's just the beginning of my spiral. And I also have to be aware of sexual anorexia. It's just avoiding all sexual confrontation.
Yep.
So I will date, and I will go back into it. I'm already resistant. I'm like, oh no, dating again.
I would hang around people and sort of project a certain part of me, but inside, right, I want to get high. Like, I want to get high. Like, that's just like, and it's eating away, and I want to go.
Do you still want to get high?
No.
You don't?
No.
See, I also don't want to get high in the same way. Like, the idea of being promiscuous again doesn't have that appeal. I
Right.
don't have that desire to have several lovers and do that again. It's not there. But like the seeds of it sometimes, like for instance, when I broke up with this guy in August because he wouldn't commit to me, I didn't jump into having sex with somebody. But what I did do was I took a walk. It was a Friday night, danger zone already. I took a walk through the neighborhood and I just walked by several bars, not for drink of alcohol. I just looked and I said, oh, that guy looks interesting. And I was like, Shanti, don't go sit at that bar.
Yeah.
Because that's what would happen. I would go and pick somebody up.
Yeah.
So the seeds are there, like I could see, and I said, you want to act out right now. And I'm like, I know I want to act out right now, and I'm not. But I'm going to walk down the street, I'm going to walk this off, and I'm going to look in that bar, and I'm like, you could sit there, and that guy would probably like you. He's your type, he probably would like you. And what would happen? And then you'd have sex with him, and then you'd feel really upset the next day, and you'd be upset that you broke your sobriety, that you've really worked hard on for 4 years. So I would just look at that empty seat next to that guy at the bar and go, I could do it, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. When the pain outweighs the pleasure, you know, when you have the clarity to see that, there's a certain level of growth.
Yep.
And that's a milestone in your recovery when you can just say, you know what, I can see the pain, not signing up for it.
So you can't be with women who get high.
I choose not to.
Right, because why put yourself in that temptation?
It's just like I say, the pain outweighs the pleasure. What is in it, you know, the immediate instant gratification for the moment? Am I willing to roll it? I rolled the dice. So I rolled the dice. I don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean what it meant.
No.
The turning point in your life, right, in your recovery, in your life, from what I understand, was the passing of your mom.
Yes.
Can you talk about how that affected you?
My mother, she passed away on July 25th, 2011. And my sister and I and my brother, we'd been taking care of her for several years. She had Alzheimer's. I had a very tumultuous relationship with my mother. My life with her was difficult, but she was constantly screaming, constantly beating me, and she beat me the most severely when I was playing doctor. So I played doctor with my sister, I played doctor with my girlfriends, and I mean, they were brutal beatings, and I never forgot them. And I eventually stopped.
You mean when you were a little girl playing doctor?
Between ages, like I'd say 5 and 7.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah,
approximately.
Okay.
And the last beating was so severe, I just never went there again. A lot of children play doctor. It's a normal part of healthy development. They want to understand what...
that's how she saw that? That's why she beat you?
Yes.
Ooh.
So but it was a severe beating. And so I could have gone one or two ways with this. I could have become incredibly conservative and closed down sexually because that happened to me, but I went the other way.
And you carried that childhood trauma all that time.
But I was always very interested and very curious about sex. So that was really the seed level of it, was really those traumas with my mom, those beatings of playing doctor.
Okay, but then when she passed?
When she passed, gosh, who knows what magical, I don't know, cloud came over me, I don't know. As soon as she died, it was like the whole reason to go into prostitution didn't have any more validity. And so I just said, okay, you got to stop this. So some part of my mother's death was also like the death of my denial. I probably knew my husband was doing things, but I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
And it's such an intense experience to lose a loved one. The biggest loss you can have, losing your mother.
Yeah.
And somehow it just got me straight, like sober, like boom, done. No more prostitution. What are you doing with your life? Get it together. Your husband's cheating on you, kick him out. Like, it was just, I got so sharp.
Real, you got real.
I got real.
Yeah.
I got real. Yeah.
Because, that's heavy, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the vulnerability there when you lose, your mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's heavy duty.
It was actually more vulnerable for me that I wasn't feeling sad to lose her.
What? Explain that.
I had a tough relationship with my mother.
Yeah.
We were not close. So I was sad that I wasn't sad that she died.
Oh, okay.
I was doing my duty, taking care of her.
Yeah.
But I didn't miss her. I mean, 12 years with Alzheimer's was a tough road. But I was sad that I wasn't sad that she passed. I had not forgiven her at that point for the abuse as a child. Yeah. So I still had it there.
Where are you at with that now?
I would love to say that I'm totally squeaky clean and I've forgiven everything. There's like residues of it. There's still residues of it. I would not be who I am without my mother. She really is a huge part of why I'm so independent. So she was rough and gruff in her nature, but I'm also, I'm tough because of her.
Yeah. And you've been able to come out of,
Yeah.
everything you've been through
I mean,
on the right side.
I'm loving my mother more and more as each month goes by, and forgiving more and more layers that I wasn't even aware that I was holding against her.
See, I had to come to the realization that who I am is I'm that guy that wants to go get high. After all this good stuff and everybody's having a great time, I want more. I want something else, right? That's me. When I realize that's me, I gotta own that.
Right.
I can't, the longer I deny it, the longer I stay out there. And that,
I'm going to tell you something amazing that Deepak Chopra said. I saw him speak here in New York once, and I thought it was fabulous. He said that addicts are amazing human beings, and maybe you're going to see a different side of yourself. He said addicts are some of the greatest seekers of truth that you'll ever find.
No doubt.
Because they're always looking for that high. But the real high is not chemical,
Right.
It's not behavioral, it's that other high, that spiritual high. Or if listen, I have friends who are atheists, they don't think about God. Whatever they call spirit, it could be love. So yeah, we still want to get high. We're always going to want to get high. Like for me, my great high is giving back. Yeah, it's really tough coming out about this addiction. So my high for giving back, and I want to wake people up to this addiction because, like me, I lived my life without even knowing I had it, and especially women. And so I'm taking a huge risk, but it's also a high. I'm so high knowing that I'm going to help so many thousands of people. So it's just a different high. So you're doing these shows, you're interviewing interesting people that are bringing their knowledge out into the world and their experience. So this is another way you're getting high, but it's a way of giving back.
It's amazing you say that, though. That is kind of the theme behind what we do. Every person that's been here does a significant degree of service with their life. And that is really, that's what I've learned. I've learned that's what it's about. I'm just sharing your journey with whoever will see this,
right?
Because I think it's important, and I think people in need to hear your story should hear it.
So you're getting high from creating this.
High as a kite.
High as a kite.
High as a kite.
So we're always going to want to get high, but let's just get high on things that matter. High on things that make a difference. We don't have to feel bad about this idea that we want to get high. Yeah, we still want to get high.
You know what the amazing thing is, though? Look at to sit here and have this conversation.
Yeah.
You had to go down your road. I went down my road. Everybody went down their road, and we're all here. And this is why we can do this. Had we each not, this is not possible. Your story's phenomenal. This is why I think you're so courageous. You're being judged by every man and every woman.
It's any addiction has a stigma, but especially having a sex addiction as a woman, because as you know, we're still supposed to be virgins until we get married. That stigma is still deep. I didn't sign up to be the poster child for women with sex and love addiction.
But it's your truth.
But it's my truth.
Yeah.
And I, it's not what I would have wanted to, my gift to the world, but if I can take some of the stigma away so that other women will get healthy, get sober, I feel I've done a great service because I lived with this for so long, in the dark, in the shadows.
Yeah.
And, we recover from this, I'm sober. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, every month goes by and I'm teetering on homelessness.
Does that fear trigger anything off in you that you think that when you brought up the relapse, could you see how you have to protect yourself from the fear that's behind that financial insecurity?
No, I wouldn't act out sexually.
Where do you get the
I can't do it.
Good for you.
I just can't do it. Not that I don't want to do it, but I'm not going to do it, because what kind of message am I going to send to these young girls who are in prostitution or strippers or whatever, that are trying to get sober from their addiction?
So you're an out in the field advocate for this? You're going out
there,
you're out there, you're a spokeswoman for a sex addiction?
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah.
Who knew?
Getting high is a symptom.
Right.
The sexual addiction is a symptom to the problem, and eventually, if we can stay clean enough and keep searching, we get to what is it,
Well, it's just that void in our soul that wants to be loved and give love. You don't need to have an addiction to give back. It's just
It's about service.
it's just
That's
the blessing of having an addiction is you eventually get to the point that realize that giving back is the best thing you can ever do in your life. And sometimes if you don't have an addiction, you don't ever get to that place. But giving back is the greatest joy.
Without a doubt.
It's the greatest joy.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
I met Tao, this lady Tao. I told you about her, the 97
The yoga
year-
teacher.
What a gift.
I-
We're going to get her. When she's going
Oh,
we're going to do her
I
in
would love to
January,
meet
too.
her.
She is such a
Yeah,
phenomenal...
I've seen so many. I saw the video, the interview you did with her here. What priceless, right?
Unbelievable.
I know.
But again, she's abundant in love. She's just a really cool lady.
God, let me be happy and healthy at that age too.
Yeah, and not have to go down this road. I mean,
Really,
it's
we're not
amazing.
going down that road
Yeah.
anymore,
But
Scott.
the
We are
thing is,
not.
Whatever the deal is, it's all, eventually, like, I was lucky enough to meet this lady and just sit
Yeah.
down and talk with her. We're going to do it again. And to meet you, and because of the road I went down,
Yeah.
I have my own perspective. Well, Shanti, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
honey.
This
Thank
has
you
been
so
an
much.
absolute pleasure.
It's been great.
Yeah, how can we follow up on when your book becomes available, your memoirs?
You can follow me on Facebook, on Twitter. On Twitter, my name is Shanti Patty Owen at legalcourtesan.com. And I'll post as soon as it's out. I mean, at the moment, I'm in the discussion period with various publishers. I'm open to all of the publishing experiences. It's a new arena for me. I'm really enjoying it. They have been such a godsend, the Feminine Collective. Love them, love these ladies. And also, if you want to buy this book, I have several essays in this book. Amongst other essays, fabulous women, Feminine Collective, raw and unfiltered.
Girl power.
Girl power, honey. Girl power.